fighting, a lot of it's just a matter of either God protects you or risk that, you know, you're the unlucky one. I don't know. I mean, who knows why some people come home and some don't. But when you get in the car, you got to make a decision. You know, wow, is the person driving this car, they've been drinking? If they have, call me. Call your mom and dad. Don't get in the car with them. It's decisions. One wrong decision, and everything you spend your whole life working for can get down and go. Just one decision, like using that head stroke, could have changed that child's life. His mother, one time. You wanted that thing I gave you?
No. Can they finish up?
Sure. How much more time we have? 25 minutes?
About 20.
We got specific questions here. You want me to read these?
They'll go through. I think Haley, weren't you up next?
We have names. Catherine,
okay.
I heard Catherine already, right?
And you heard, and yeah. Kenneth. Haley.
Kenneth already asked. So how about Haley?
During your 22 years as the Richland County Coroner, you were very involved with child health and safety. You served as the president of the South Carolina Sudden Infant Death Syndrome Council and actively volunteered as an emergency medical technician. Based on your past involvement, what advice would you offer to people who want a career in social services or criminal justice?
Well, there are two different fields. Social services, you would probably get a degree in what? Psychology or whatever, and you get a master's in social work, something like that. One of my daughters-in-law, she counsels the soldiers coming home from the war right now. Back before that, that's what she did. Criminal justice. I would highly recommend that you set your goals on a master's degree if you go in either one of these fields. How far you go in that field and how much income you have to help your family is going to have a lot to do with getting a master's degree. So set your sights high in either of those fields. Is there anything else about that? You get a master's degree, you'll get the job.
Good advice. That ups your economic mobility.
Rick.
Hi. You've had a long, distinguished career in public service. Once you've completed your last term and left your office, how tempting was it to just hang up your suit and take it easy?
Things, really, I mean, once again, my family would always say God works in mysterious ways. The day after I was no longer a coroner, my mother found out she had leukemia. And I was able to spend all of my time with my mother until she died. Then my father, who I'd never been close to, he went to war 6 weeks before I was born, and he came home. I was nearly 2 years old. I was bonded to my grandfather, as I mentioned, not to my dad. He worked, my dad worked all the time. He was a Clemson graduate, an engineer. I hardly saw him except for supper at night, you know, a few minutes. And, you know, I never felt close to my dad, but I took care of him. And then he decided when he was in his 90s, after my mother had died, he said his knees were so worn out, he was in terrible pain trying to walk. And he said, I don't know if I'm going to be able to walk much longer. And they get ready to build a new building over at Still Hopes in West Columbia. I would like to get one of those cars over there and move in there, because I don't think you can live and pick me up if I can't walk. So I said, that's a good idea, Dad. So we got him in there, and I moved to West Columbia. And that's how I happened to live in Lexington County and not Richland County. But after my dad died, which was 3 years ago, and my youngest child, my 8th child, had finished school in Casey while I was living over there, and then she went to college, and then she decided to move out. They all do. None of them want to live with their parents forever, you know. So once Dad died, my daughter moved out, I started feeling useless, you know. I said, what can I do to be of some use? And I said, well, I guess the place I could be the greatest use is using what I know the best, my years of experience, you know. And so I applied a CERT, that's Community Emergency Management. A Community Emergency Response Team is what CERT stands for. And I'm now a member of CERT. And then I said, well, my friend John Green asked me if I would like to work with the National Guard. I said, my son's a Marine, and those guys come back from being deployed. Their employers sometimes don't want to give them all their longevity, you know, seniority, benefits, and everything back. I said, I'm gonna volunteer over here. So I worked with all 5 of the guard units in Lexington County if they had any employment issues. And I joined the Rotary. I had been in the Stone Club over there when I was coroner, but it's just getting back involved. But really, you know, that's a good question, and I feel like that I'm 67 years old, by the way, and you know, I could, every day when I was crying almost, I saw someone dead that day who thought they were going to be alive a long time. I mean, we don't know, you know. I don't think I'm going to die today, but I might. I mean, you know, so I want to be ready for that. But the insurance companies think I'm going to live to be 88 because they just issued a life insurance policy on me a few months ago at preferred rate, not just standard, but better than standard. So I figure I'm going to live. My mom and dad, my mom died about 82. I'm hoping that I have made 13 years that if I exercise and eat properly and take care of myself, that I can really help as many people as I can. And I have realized that that is really what it's all about. I'll add, my grandmother, my father's mother, when he was a teenager, he asked her, he said, Mom, what is life about? And she said, to serve. And she did. And it's just a thing in my family. My mother's father was a doctor too, by the way, and he was knighted by the Pope because he did so much terrible everywhere he went. He took care of the lepers at Molokai when the other doctors didn't. That was when leprosy was incurable. And doctors didn't want to go to Molokai to the leper colony. They had them off on another island. And my grandfather went and took care of them. He did that everywhere he went. But it's just the greatest joy in life is serving. You know, wouldn't you much rather be able to help someone else than have them have to? You need help? I mean, it takes real humility to graciously accept someone else's help. You know what I mean? And I'm just, one day I might have to have it. I might not be able to get myself to the bathroom. Who knows? I mean, it can happen, right? And I hope it doesn't happen. I hope the Lord Spirit and that takes me quickly. But let's see, who's next? Vanessa? Vanessa? How do you say it? Vanessa?
Shortly before you left the Richmond County Coroner's Office in 2000, you helped to get child restraint and seatbelt laws passed. How effective a deterrent has that been in reducing child fatality rates in South Carolina?
I don't have the statistics on that currently, you know, but I know it's been significant. I just don't have up-to-date figures to tell you, but it's saved a lot of children's lives. And, you know, enforcing it is important. I was driving across that old bridge down across the river, you know, River Drive, you know, Broad River, in Columbia. One day I passed a woman and she had a child standing up in the front seat. I turned around and I stopped her. And I called the Department of Social Services and they came and they took the kids, okay? But then I talked to the Department of Social Services and her, and I said, look, I don't want your kids taken away from you. I want you to see that 2 things could have happened. You could lose your kids by having them taken away, or you could have lost them by getting killed. Now, I've just brought you car seats for those kids. I want you to use them. And I'm going to ask the Department of Social Services to turn it back over to you. But you have to promise me you'll never let them get the car and give it back. So that's, cool. Is that it? Did I answer your question?